Guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name's Kaylin. I'm a dual UK and American citizen. Today, I'm wearing my UCLA sweatshirt in honor of the topic of this video, 11 American habits I lost when I moved to the UK. Some of these are for the better, so buckle up, let's get started. Okay, and some of these are very, very small things, and some of them are big things. Number one, I almost never say the word garbage can anymore. I say a lot of American words still. I don't say rubbish, but I do say bin, and I don't typically say the word garbage, and I don't typically say the word garbage can. And I don't know why this one in particular, I've switched to like the British phrasing or the British words. It is something that is said a lot, like in day-to-day life, like taking out the bins or put it in the bin or bin it or whatever. Is something that you hear a lot, so I think it gets ingrained a bit more. And also the word garbage can just seems like an effort to say compared to bin, so I almost never say it. Should I start saying it again? Should I only refer to it as a garbage can or garbage? Comment below. Okay, number two, I cannot deal with the heat anymore. I grew up in Florida, you guys. Like, I grew up in a hot place. And when you live in a hot place for a long time, you get used to the heat and dealing with it. It's not like you necessarily have to love it, but your body can just take it. Now that I've lived in the UK for 10 years, I equally cannot deal with the heat to the same extent that a like born and bred British person cannot deal with the heat. The temperature gets like remotely hot here and I'm done. I'm like, it's too hot. I'm sweating. It is a different kind of heat in Florida versus in the UK. And also the fact that UK buildings are not made for the heat makes a difference as well. So I would argue that sometimes it can feel hotter here than it would in somewhere like Florida, even without air conditioning. Like Florida homes are mostly tile and the homes are meant to like bleed the heat out, not keep it in. But I can't deal with the heat anymore. So I've become British in that sense. I have slept with an ice pack in my bed a night or two, not gonna lie. Number three. I don't smile or say hello to strangers as much. This is a very American habit. We are, I mean, maybe not in like the most major of cities like New York, but in most of the countries, you pass somebody on the street and, you know, walking the dog or like walking around the neighborhood, or I don't know the exact context, but I just feel like Americans are always smiling at people and saying hello to strangers. Now, this is specifically talking about the southeast of England because it's different in other parts of the country, but I live in the southeast of England. So I don't do this as much anymore because it doesn't really seem to be the culture here. And then I just look like the weird one who is smiling and saying hello to random people. So now I don't know what to do. Like now it's awkward because sometimes I'm like, did they expect me to smile and say hello to them and now they think I'm being rude? Or like, are we both just feeling awkward or am I doing the right thing? So I would say my American habit of just like acknowledging other people's existence has kind of fallen by the wayside in the UK. Number four, I no longer expect free refills. I know that it's not a thing. It doesn't happen in the UK unless you're somewhere like Nando's. But at a traditional restaurant, you don't have free refills in the same way that you do in the US, except for something like tap water. And so it's not something that I ever expect. And so when I go to the US, I am then reverse surprised, like reverse culture shocked into remembering that refills are free. In the US, I might have like refills of something, but in the UK, I don't even want it because I know that it's like, it will cost more money and I don't expect it. Number five, I don't really care about having ice in my water. This is a very American thing that you see all the YouTubers talk about, like, oh, like they don't put ice in their water as much in the UK, or I had to ask for it or whatever. Like Americans love ice in their water. I must have been like this before, but again, it is not as common here, but now I don't even want it. I'm like, no, I want more of whatever like the drink is. I don't necessarily need ice. And I feel like people offer me ice like in home sometimes specifically because I'm American. Like they think that I will expect that. And I actually don't. I actually don't necessarily need ice in my drinks. And that feels like a very British or European thing to me. Number 6. I do not tip like an American. I don't feel obligated to. I don't want to. I know a lot of American visitors who come here are like, I can't not tip. American tipping culture is so different. Here in the UK, you don't have to tip. Sometimes the service charge is added and then like I'll pay it. But like you don't have to tip in a lot of things that you do in America. And so I have not kept my American tipping culture. I would gladly save myself the money. Half the time, by the way, you go to a restaurant, particularly like a chain restaurant, and they will press no on the card reader where it says, do you want to tip, before handing it to you. So yeah, I don't tip like an American anymore. I've definitely lost that habit moving to the UK, and when I go back to America, again, big culture shock when you realize that now you do need to tip for things that you don't in the UK, or you need to tip a much larger amount than you would in the UK. But as I said, I save myself the money and have lost my American tipping culture. Number 7, an American habit that I've gotten out of is worrying about going to the doctor because of monetary reasons, or more specifically, not even just the doctor, but like going to the hospital. And this is a more common one. This is in a lot of videos, but it's very true. When I used to live in America, it would be like, are you dying? Like, do you actually need to go? Do you actually think that you've got like 6 months to live? Because if not, it's not going to be worth the expense of going to the doctor or the hospital. The hospital you get huge bills for. Here in the UK, I just am like, oh, I have this symptom that I think is kind of weird. Probably don't think I'm going to die in the next 6 months. I'll just make an appointment. No thoughts about money. And I really, really enjoy that kind of American way of thinking about money and health has disappeared. Next, I don't keep my eggs in the refrigerator. So you don't have to keep British eggs in the refrigerator, but you do have to keep American eggs in the refrigerator. This is due to a lot of differences that I'm not even going to go over in this video. I'll do it in another video. But I have gotten out of the habit of feeling like my eggs need to be in the fridge, because when I first moved here from America, I definitely felt like eggs needed to go in the fridge because that's just where I always stored them. Now I store my eggs on the counter, actually, and I don't put them in the fridge, because a lot of times when you're baking, it asks for like room temperature. You shouldn't necessarily have cold eggs when you're baking. I don't know. But you don't have to refrigerate British eggs. It's completely safe not to. So the American habit of rushing those eggs straight into the fridge, gone. Okay, next up, I eat a lot more things past their sell-by date or use-by date in the UK, and I'll explain why I think this is like a British versus American thing. I feel like Americans are more wary overall of like eating something by the date, and if it's past the date, then they're like, oh, it's gone, it's bad. I feel like in the UK, people are a little bit more like, oh, we'll just like smell it and then hope that it's fine. I mean, obviously there are some things that you're not going to take a risk with, but I feel like I've stopped looking at the dates as much on food products and kind of just like judge for myself whether I think it's still good. And I think this kind of plays into like the British culture of not being wasteful as well, where an American, like I might have in the past, looked at something that said it went off on like the Monday, but if it was the Tuesday, I'm like, well, I can't eat that, but it was being wasteful because it was perfectly fine. So now I'm a little bit more loosey-goosey with food sell-by dates or use-by dates. Okay, the next American habit that I have lost is not ordering dessert when I go out to eat for dinner. Follow me on this because I know that's going to sound confusing. So I would say, based on my experience, based on my generalizations, it's a more British habit when going out to eat to order multiple courses, specifically dessert. I feel like if we're going out for dessert in the UK, not all the time, not everybody, but it's more common to consider it an experience, which means that a lot of people would order dessert afterwards. In America, we go out to eat a lot more. It's less of an experience for us, and also we kind of like, let's get through this. We don't sit around after we finish for a long time. And I don't feel like it's as common for Americans to order dessert after their entree or their main meal if they're going out to dinner. I can't really explain why I feel this. I haven't seen like a study on it. I'm just telling you, Americans love dessert. I'm not arguing that we don't eat dessert, but it might be that like you would finish with your main meal at one restaurant and then you'd like go out for ice cream on the way home. It wouldn't necessarily like be a part of that particular sit down experience. Leave a comment below if you have American friends and family, if you are American, if you are British. What are your experiences on people ordering dessert with their meals or after their meals when they're going out to eat? Do you? Is it common? Do you go somewhere else? Do you have dessert at home? Okay, at number 11, I've gotten out of the American habit of using basically instant everything. I make a lot more from scratch here in the UK. That's just the culture in general that I've kind of adapted to. There's less like instant options, but in America, definitely things are all about like the instant mashed potatoes. Whereas here I would make mashed potatoes with actual potatoes. So probably my health is much better for losing this habit. I do miss a little bit of the convenience culture of like instant foods and not necessarily the time involved making everything from scratch, but like I said, overall, we're probably net positive, and the food tastes better and is actually typically cheaper making things from scratch. Like a good example is soups. So I feel like I would make a soup from scratch here because it's actually not that hard, even though I'm not a good cook. In America, I would never have made a soup from scratch. I would have just bought a can of soup. I'm not saying people don't buy cans of soup here. Obviously, they do. But I just feel like the American culture is like, if you're making your own soup, you're basically Gordon Ramsay. Whereas here, you're not. You're just like a normal person making dinner. So that is the last of my American habits that I have lost, or American ideals that I've lost moving to the UK. Like I said, this is all mostly net positive. So I'm making another video which are going to be about the American habits I did not lose when I moved to the UK. So stay around for that one coming out next. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.